official at EXP. I love the fact that he's officially here now, so he can mentor not only myself but anybody that comes along in Team Legacy. There were a few things we'll start by discussing, and then we'll leave it open for some question and answers. Number one thing, Arthur, why don't I ask you this? How'd you get started in commercial, and what made you want to try it?
Um, so I actually started doing commercial buying and helping buying commercial real estate outside of this country before I ever became a realtor here in the U.S. Um, as a matter of fact, I worked pretty closely with Richard Branson's company when they were looking at purchasing land to develop a hotel in the Seychelles, which is where I'm from. Um, there was I knew somebody looking to sell some beachfront property in the Seychelles, and it was prime for hotel development.
Nice.
And I reached out to a bunch of companies, and I actually sent an email directly to Richard Branson. I went and found his email and sent it directly to him, um, and he responded. Which was great. And I ended up working with his CFO at the time, who was a gentleman called Chris Brown. I remember that, and we negotiated, got back and forth, and got the deal almost to the finish line. And then there's being a third world country, people started asking for bribes,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the deal ended up falling through. But that was my first one, and learned more than I could imagine from some of these guys. Just the talking back and forth, and just listening to what was important to the buyer at the time, and what was obviously what was important for the seller.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was how I got started. And then when I came over here, I started dabbling in buying real estate, and I realized how much commission was involved in these deals, and I decided to get my license.
Good stuff. All
Yeah.
right. That's very, very inspiring. That's good. For me personally, same question. I think for me, it was, I used to be in, my parents were blue collar retail for so long. And my family owned a liquor store for years, probably 33 years total that we had the liquor store. And it was kind of like my upbringing was retail. But when I started, when I got into adulthood, I looked at our lease because, you renew your lease
Yeah.
every 5 years. So when I looked at that lease, I asked my dad, I said, hey, let me take a look at this lease just so I can, for my knowledge. And, I just kind of saw how much they charge you per square feet, how much you're going to be committed for 5 years and all that. And I was like, you know what? This is a different world. I need to kind of learn a little bit more about this world. So I just got my first like taste of commercial real estate through looking at my own lease for my business.
And this is something that comes as a surprise to a lot of agents. Um, a commercial lease will sometimes involve 2 to 3 times more commission than selling $1 million house.
People don't realize that
Just
when they
just so
think
you
of,
guys know, one commercial lease
yep,
can be $200,000 in commission.
it can be. And I think you and I are both living examples of that. When we
Yeah,
talk about the deals that we've done in the past, the notion that when you do a residential lease, yeah, you get a grand, a
yeah.
couple of grand commission. That's not how it works in
No,
commercial real estate. And maybe we can kind of talk about how we calculate that later on
yeah.
in the call. So that's kind of how both Arthur and I got started. Arthur, you want to tell people about your first deal? Like the first, or was the first deal in America? Let's put it
My
that way.
first deal in America, I actually represented a somebody that wanted to, which coincidentally is the one you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
it was helping a couple into a lease for a restaurant.
Nice. Nice.
And it was a 10-year lease. It was a pretty large space. Um, and being a 10-year lease, the commission on there was close to $70,000.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was very interesting. But we negotiated the lease. Now because there was a renewal clause in there, but what happened is the tenants actually never renewed. They shut down the restaurant and they moved to very recently. They shut down the restaurant. They moved just before the 10-year renewal came in. They moved to Montana. So
Wow.
otherwise, I would just so you guys know when the renewal on a lease like this happens, you get paid again. Now, it wouldn't have been another close to $70,000 this time. It would have been, I think, somewhere around $35,000.
Which is half of
Yeah,
for doing nothing.
for not doing anything. It would
Yeah.
just have been renewing the contract, and I would have got paid again for the same deal.
That's that's a great example right there. You know,
Which one was your first one?
my first one was similar to yours, where it was a lease. But the first official one that I did end up doing, I'll tell you this, it took 18 months to finish. 18 months, guys. That's a year and a half. But it was an amazing deal. So I helped a big company move their warehouse from a 60,000 square foot place where they were to 110,000 square foot place. They were expanding their business. And so they wanted my help in negotiating the lease. And the reason why the 18 months took so long, Arthur, it was because part of this was during COVID.
Fun.
So all renegotiations had to be done. Can you imagine during COVID, you're trying to sign a lease that's going to be normally your base rent is going to be 60 grand a month. You know, you have to redo the whole thing, and
Yeah,
that was a headache. That
I
was a
can
headache.
imagine.
And but ultimately, you know, everybody persevered and we got through it. 18 months later, you know, they moved in and they're thriving. And I still get messages from that client saying thank you for what you did for us during COVID, because right now the market the way it is, we would be paying triple
Which with warehouses, yeah,
with warehouses,
yeah,
with industrial.
it's gone crazy.
So that commission, you know, I don't like to talk about it, but it was a 10-year lease. I didn't get the renewal, by the way, because you know, we tried, but it was a 10-year lease. Imagine the 10-year lease, 110,000 square feet, and they paid us 4%.
Which is another thing.
Open for negotiations.
Yeah.
Yes. It's not a traditional 3%.
And we're not supposed to say that.
Yes,
There's
we're not.
no such thing as traditional.
There is no tradition. You're right. We don't want to get sued around here. So, but there is no traditional anything in commercial real estate. Everything is up for negotiation. The thing that Arthur and I can honestly say we appreciate about commercial real estate is it's a numbers game.
It's numbers.
There's zero emotion involved.
None of that.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, oh, I don't like that paint color.
Yep.
You know, I don't like the way that roof looks.
I don't like this neighborhood.
Yeah, there's none of that.
None of that.
It's sometimes people want to buy the building because it's in a bad neighborhood.
Yes, it is more money there
Yeah.
to be made. So we love that aspect of it. Is we're not, for lack of better, we're not babysitting anybody's feelings.
No.
We really are just crunching numbers and presenting facts to clients.
And you're not going to offend people by telling them the truth.
Yep.
They want to know the truth. They want the numbers. They want hard facts. And turning around and trying to, as a matter of fact, you know, trying to hide things that are numbers related could actually lose you a deal. So be aware
True.
of that.
Yep. You'd rather wait 18 months or wait like maybe 6 months or a year, what you did for that lease, you know, to come through than try to do a shortcut.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, you get sued for that, and you're in line to lose a lot more than you gain.
One thing you guys will realize is if you go back and look at the lawsuits involving real estate, the majority of them, I think it's in excess of 80% of lawsuits are directly related to commercial real estate, and not as much in residential real estate. And the reason why is because there's so much money involved. Just one mistake could cost, you know, millions.
Yeah.
One mistake could basically jeopardize a business for the future. So they're a lot more likely to come after you for a mistake. So
Yeah.
be aware of that.
I think that's a valid point. Now, what's another misconception, Arthur, about needing a designation to practice real estate?
So in commercial, there's probably only two. One of them is extremely hard to get, and you have to have been in real estate for like 40 years or something ridiculous. Um, it's almost like having a PhD in real estate. But the one that you'd want to get if you do decide to become a commercial agent is a CCIM. And even that is extremely hard to get because you need a certain amount of production in commercial estate before you can get one of those.
Yeah.
And then even getting one of those, it takes a lot of studying. And one of a good friend of mine just did hers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Felicia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I think only a third of the class ended up passing the exam.
Yikes.
That's how difficult it is to get it. So
Yikes.
it's not an easy thing. It's not like the designations we get in residential real estate.
You pop into
They
an 8 hour
yeah
class and you're designated?
no
No.
no, it's not like that. I think it takes about 2 years just to get it,
Wow.
and then just to be allowed to sit the exam.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, then you have to pass that exam too.
Yeah.
And that exam is very intense. A lot of finance questions, a lot of math involved. Um, and you basically need to be able to communicate with hedge funds
Yeah. It's a lot of
and
technical.
very large companies that are looking to invest in commercial real estate. So it's not an easy topic, but none of it is.
None of it is. You're right. It's you said this yesterday when we were at that Champions. You said it's kind of like getting your master's.
It is. It's like getting a master's degree in
Yeah.
real estate.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't see a lot of people with CCIMs behind their names.
That's a holy grail for
Yeah.
commercial. But the misconception is you don't need that to practice it. Now, Arthur and I will both tell you if you came to us and said, "Hey, I want to do a deal. I want to do a lease, or I want to do anything, industrial or a purchase." First thing both of us will tell you, not for our benefit, but for yours, is you probably need a mentor. You need somebody to
You need
help
somebody
guide
to
you.
hold your hand.
Somebody needs to guide you.
Yeah, to help you through it. It's not easy, and unlike residential, commercial brokers will take advantage of you.
Oh, all day.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
they
Oh yeah.
will. They have no qualms with taking advantage of you.
They're
Okay,
like sharks.
they very much so. They will do whatever it takes for them to make more and for you to make less.
Yep.
So be aware of that.
Yep. So that's the number one thing is, and if you talk to our broker team will tell you the same thing, that there's too much liability. You being a brand new person trying to do commercial real estate, we're not going to have that. They would rather you have somebody mentor you through the deal than try to take it on yourself. So, when Tony King was around, he and I talked a lot about this, and now Karen and I have talked about it, and Karen's talked to me and said, we use you as a commercial mentor, and obviously Arthur now, where, you really want to be the go-to person, where you're not having to do things yourself. That just the lingo alone is a whole different world. And they smell blood in the water. The other commercial brokers who are full-time commercial guys, they are like sharks. I mean, you show one piece of weakness, they're going to be all over you.
The fangs and claws come out.
It's crazy. We've all been through it. I'm sure Arthur went through some of that. I did too, getting into this business. So, if anything, we can be a resource for you guys. You can come to us, and we'll kind of coach you through the whole thing, and
Absolutely.
it's not about the money. Ultimately, it's about getting a deal done and making all sides happy. So keep that in mind. And Oh, I see a comment from Dora. Thank you, Dora. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can do more work together and continue to do what you're doing. You're doing great, Dora. And then I see someone else. I think they took advantage of me when I leased a space back in 2007. Willie, yeah, sorry to hear that, man. It happens a lot. William, and that's why you
It
really have to be mindful.
it is, and it's very important that, well, most of you now, you're licensed, so you know how important representation is, and in commercial, it's even more important to have that, because you'll get yourself into a contract where it could end up being very detrimental to your business.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, EXP loves commercial, but they separated it. They have a commercial division because that's more of the
And I
liability.
think that kind of answers the question there as well.
What are the steps in? Oh, okay. The steps right here.
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll definitely, Annette, we'll definitely get to that answer for you for transitioning from EXP or transitioning from residential to commercial.
Okay, thank you.
Number one, sorry, you were saying something, Annette? Oh, she's on mute. Okay.
ah,
Yeah. So I'll answer this question as far as the question that Annette asked. Transition, it seems like intimidating, but it's not.
yeah,
As long as you have somebody who's going to help you guide you through the process. And that's why Arthur and I are here. If you ever want to talk about it one-on-one, after this call is done, we can always set up a Zoom and or you can come into our office and we can talk about your commercial potential deals. My number one my number one statement is never say no. Find a way to answer that question for that client and then call us and we'll get you an answer. So the transition is not that hard. It really is just starting with one deal and getting mentored through it, getting the practice, getting the lingo. And we still firmly believe that when you're new to commercial, rely on your residential sales to pay your bills. Don't just transition into commercial full time.
yeah. I mean, it could take you
It can take a
six,
while.
7 months to close a commercial deal, and you won't get paid throughout that time.
Yep.
But bear in mind, it can take you 6 to 7 months to potentially get to the closing table, and then the deal falls through at the closing table.
Yep.
Which also happens in
It
commercial.
happens a lot.
So,
Yep.
and then obviously, as we talked earlier, then lawsuits start flying around,
Yep.
right? So be aware that if you are a residential agent and you're making good income from that, and you want to transition towards commercial, we'd be happy to help you do it.
Yep.
But make sure you still have your bread and butter taking care of you while you're doing the transition.
Yeah, I agree. The other, thing that Arthur and I could both attest to is I've gotten this question. You'll probably get this question now is should I transfer to EXP commercial?
Yeah,
There's
there's benefits
there's downfalls to
and
that.
there's downfalls to it.
My number one recommendation is right now don't do that. Not to, negate what commercial is doing, but they have stipulations. The number one stipulation if you transfer over is you can't practice residential anymore. You can't have access to HAR.
No.
So that tells me right there is that's just for the hardcore commercial guys only.
Well, and also HAR and Trek put a lot more restrictions on you. Actually, the HAR puts a lot of restrictions on you when you do commercial.
Yeah.
So a lot of agents choose not to be a member of HAR because they don't want those restrictions attached. EXP makes it that you're not for the same reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something to be mindful of. And I think we got a comment from Melissa, so we'll definitely talk about that. All right, Melissa is saying that you did a commercial lease and a land purchase without a mentor. She did her own research. You can definitely reach out to us for future mentorship. We would love to help you. Arthur and I will tell you guys this. We're not here to take your money, okay? We're here to just help guide you through the process of getting a deal done, and we'll make it fair for everybody involved. And Dora can kind of give you, that um, feedback. I've talked to William before a little bit. Ron Seriak's on here. Ron's, I've helped Ron through some of these deals. I think I saw KJ. We've been talking to
Yeah.
KJ recently about some multifamily. So whoever's dealt with us, we try to tell you guys that it's not about taking your deal away from you. I always tell my agents, whoever calls me, we'll customize a deal for you specifically to this deal. You tell me what you want out of it. If you want me to take the whole thing and give you a referral, great. If you want to be involved and get mentorship, great. We will help you do either process. That's the important having a mentor. Arthur, would you say there's anything else that you would say that qualifies for having a mentor, back you up? We haven't even talked about contracts and reading a contract and all that stuff yet, negotiations. But I think having a guide with you is,
All of what you just said.
yeah.
Because it's none of it is easy, and if you just take a few minutes and just go and look at the commercial contract that's included in, and bear in mind, most commercial agents, pure commercial agents, do not use that document. Okay, they'll have something drafted by an attorney to send to you. But the LOI that they have in there is actually it's pretty decent. You could use that.
Yeah.
But if you go on Zip Forms and you look at the commercial improved property contract and you read through that, about 2 or 3 pages in, you're probably going to be giving us a call. It's definitely complicated, and you need to know what all these terms and what everything in there actually means.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think KJ kind of hit the nail on the head too, is there. She wouldn't mind splitting something where at least it gets done,
Yeah.
So ultimately everybody wins, and you will get more deals that way. And eventually there'll be a day where you won't need us. So it all works itself out.
I'm going to use a word that might upset people. um, People who are buying commercial real estate can smell bullshit from a mile off.
Yep.
Okay, so if you think you're going to BS your way into a commercial deal, it's gonna get you into a lot of trouble.
Yep.
It's actually better to have somebody with you that knows what they're doing, and then your potential client, understands where they are and understands that you know what you're doing.
Yep.
Because otherwise you potentially lose that client entirely.
Yeah. Yeah. Good feedback. We got a question here from Troy saying, I have a license, but it has never been active. Is starting in commercial recommended? Do you have a residential license, Troy? Like you've never done residential either? I think generally, if I were to give advice to Troy, I would say dabble in it, but no, don't go head first.
I mean,
Yeah. So
how financially savvy are you?
Yeah.
That's a question that would go hand in hand with what you're asking.
Yeah. Do you have the means to,
do you know what cap rate means? Do you know what ROI, NOI, what determines the cap rate of a property? All of these things. If you know all of those, then you could probably start in commercial and start seeing how it works out for you. If you don't, then I would suggest you start with the residential first, and then look at going into there.
Yep. That's the advice we give a lot of the agents on our team, is if you want to learn commercial, that's great. Shadow us, come to some of the appointments with us, learn the lingo, continue to do residential so you can get paid, and eventually get into a transition into commercial. That's what you really want to do. Arthur and I personally want to do that too. We eventually just want to do commercial, but right now we're doing residential as well because it's important to get.
Well, it pays the bills.
It pays the bills.
Keeps
the lights on.
Keeps our 27 agents busy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So now I think we're almost 30 minutes in. I'll open it up for some more questions. Can we answer anything that's vital for you guys to ask the whole group? Please raise your hand, and Sydney, if they need to be unmuted, if you could help with that.
Hi, how are
Hey,
you? Yeah,
I'm good. Good, good.
yeah. I have a question. I know everything is
Sorry, are you there? You got muted there.
okay. You
There you
hear
are.
that? Yeah,
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
yeah. I know that everything is not easy from the beginning when you start a new journey. For example, you transit from residential to commercial. So do you think if we start with the commercial where you have the knowledge background about it, it's gonna more easier? For example, like you have the knowledge about the business,
Yep.
uh, um, about medical building, for example, or you have a knowledge about a restaurant, or you are a business restaurant before.
Mhm.
So is it gonna make it more easier when you transit to something like that before you start something else? So that make more sense and more easier.
Yes and no. Um, if you've actually ran a business, it does help because you know how to put a
Practice. Yep.
you know how to put a cash flow statement together. You know how to put financial documents for the business together, and you're able to read those documents and be able to tell whether hey, you know what, this is actually something I can invest in, or this is something that my client specifically asking for this, and based on these numbers, this property won't work. So you need to be able to do all of that. Having ran your own business, having had to do all of that for your business will help you will help you in commercial. But whether it's us or whether it's somebody else that you'd like to mentor, I would like to mentor you. I would definitely get somebody to help you, because it's not you that you have to worry about. It's not whether you're going to make a mistake. It's see the potential for the other side, for lack of a better word, screw you over.
Mhm.
Okay. Because, like we were saying, the other side doesn't care about you. They don't care about your client. And it's very much a dog eat dog world in that business. It's hey, if I can take advantage of you, I'm going to do so.
Yep.
And I'm going to do so as much as possible. Um, in commercial, it's. I mean, I can if you're a good negotiator and you know what's going on in the market, you can turn around and say, hey, this building has been empty for 2 years. I've got a tenant that is wanting to lease the property, right? So what I'd like is for you guys to pay for half the build out, and we want 6 months of free rent. Okay. That happens in commercial.
Yep.
But you need to have done that homework. You need to have known about the property. You need to have been able to read through all of that to know where you stand, that you have the leverage over the other agent to request all these things.
Yep.
Now, if you know all of this and you know how to do all of this, then by all means you could jump in and go do it right away. But if you don't, and you don't have access to all this information, then you're not doing yourself a service. Um, Most of you that are interested in commercial will probably be aware of LoopNet,
Yep.
right? But the LoopNet you have access to only has about 40% of the properties on there. Um, if you pay for LoopNet, you'll get access to the rest of some of those.
Mhm.
But there's also another 30 to 40% of properties that are listed that are not on LoopNet. They are through CCIM networks. They are through um, CoStar.
Co-star.
And
Yep.
CoStar one person. So for the two of us, for us to have access, both of us to have access to it, it's over $1,000 a month. So it's not something that's
Cheap.
yeah. I was looking for a better word, but it's not cheap.
It's $1 to $2 grand what
Yeah.
we're paying, depending on how many listings we have.
Yeah, and one listing, whether you sell it today or tomorrow or in a year's time, the minute you get a listing and you have to put it on, before you even do anything, it's
There's
going
a
to
cost.
cost you about 2 to 3 grand.
Easily. That's just a regular listing, you know.
Yeah, that's before you do any marketing, before you pay for any boost to boost it on their system.
Yeah.
So it's not a cheap thing to get into.
No, there's an avenue. We both got there, you know, and you know, we both found a way to slowly get into this industry where we feel comfortable. And so there's a lot of unknowns and variables, but we're here for that. Let's see. I see a hand raised. Is that you, Amanda?
It's me. Okay, I had a question because I see about half the audience is our boss babe women in this group. And I know I've done a couple commercial deals, and it definitely, at least when I did the commercial deals, it felt like the good old boys club, right? Like there's
it's still like that.
It's very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah.
So
and you have to have gone to Texas A&M too, don't forget.
So do you see that a lot more women getting into commercial, or you think it'll probably stay more traditional, old school, for lack of better words? Or how do women, I saw Dora put, how do we attract more commercial clients? How do women kind of break through to stay relevant? Like we can do in luxury residential all day long, but for commercial, I think it's a little bit different.
I've seen the trend get better, Amanda.
Yeah,
I think
it's improving
it's getting there.
considerably. I would say 10 years ago, there was probably 5 or 6 women that I knew that were like that were prominent
Mhm.
in commercial.
Yep.
Simi Jagi, there's a couple of other ladies that I can think of off the top of my head. But nowadays, I see a lot more.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's the same thing as engineering, right? If you think about it, for a long time, women were not getting into engineering. They just weren't
Yeah.
involved, and it wasn't an avenue where they pursued. But now you're seeing a lot of ladies go into engineering because they're encouraging people to go into engineering. They're encouraging women to go into engineering. The minute, and a lot of those, I would say a lot of engineers, a lot of people who are very familiar with numbers, when they decide to change career or they decide to go into real estate, what you'll find is a lot of those ladies will tend to prefer going into commercial as opposed to residential because they're comfortable with numbers. They're happy with numbers. They don't like emotions. And all of you who have worked with engineers as residential agents know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's the way they feel comfortable. That's, I'm an engineer as well, so it's something that's comfortable for me. I enjoy working with numbers. When people get emotional, I pass them over to Louisa. Mickey knows this very well. Yep. Because I start getting upset as soon as as people start getting emotional. All I want to do is go and shake them. Say, get a hold of yourself, But Louisa's like, nope, don't do that.
Your babysitter.
Yeah, yes, very much so. But yeah, I think you're going to see more and more of it, Amanda.
Yeah,
as women tend to. Yes, that good old boy network is still there.
It's easier to press through it now, though.
Here's the deal. You guys are with the EXP, and we would encourage you. We would help you do it. If you decided to go and join CBRE, chances are they're going to pick somebody from Texas A&M that's a finance analyst guy as opposed to a woman.
Yep.
And you know, even though they're supposed to have, you know,
Equal.
everything, but you know, that's the way it works.
Yeah, they still think of themselves as a frat.
Yes, and the majority of those, you'll find these big firms that tend to have 80% Texas A&M graduates, and then you go to the other one that's got, you know, 80% UT graduates. You know, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And you're in Texas, for lack of a better word, get over it. That's
Yeah.
the way they are.
Yeah, but you know, we've had an easier time, you know,
Yeah,
getting through,
I
and
think
it's gotten better.
EXP has made it,
Very
made us
much.
more competitive, made us
More credible.
credible. Yeah, we have the tools that they have, and you know, those tools used to be so expensive that smaller firms just
Yeah.
weren't able to get in. It was just, it was a barrier, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And you needed to break that barrier in order for you to be able to get in there. And the only way was do commercial with those guys. And then once you at a certain level, you can then go and do your own thing.
Yeah. Well said, Arthur. Let's someone else raise their hand. KJ, you had a question?
Yes, just wanted to kind of chime in and say, that did happen with me as far as getting taken advantage of with that other gentleman who's with EXP from Florida. And here I am being, very trusting of this, and was very organic in letting him know, like, hey, this client is very important to me. And then thank God my broker told me about my upline with y'all, and y'all stepped in and told me that, my client doesn't have to pay all the commission like he was telling me. He could sniff it a mile away, like y'all said. But my question is there somewhere that I can go, because y'all are helping me, but also my client is, like I said, I'm very transparent, not knowing the lingo, him knowing, yes, I've done, flippings, flips and stuff on different buildings, but not done a commercial deal. Is there somewhere we can go to learn the abbreviations? And I don't know what a CCIN is and all I'm like, okay, like, I don't even know where to start.
Do you like to read?
Does it have pictures?
At least she's honest.
There's a couple of commercial real estate books that I could share. I don't have it with me right now, but I could share to the group, or I can share to Amanda later, and
she can send it out too, or Sydney, or Sydney can send it out too.
Okay.
There's a couple of classes that Champions offer that will give you the basic knowledge. There's a lot of irrelevant information in those classes, but there's also some good information that you can use to improve your basically your knowledge of the lingo.
Okay.
There's quite a bit. I mean, you've got your basic stuff, ROI, NOI, TI, triple net, that kind of stuff. I mean, we can definitely help you with stuff like that. But if you want to learn and really get to know the reasons why some of that is used and what it really goes after, I think it would be good to get a book and just kind of get a little bit more involved into learning how some of that stuff is calculated.
Like, if I throw a question out there and I ask everybody here, does everyone know what cap rate means? I wonder how many people
KJ,
raise their
you're
hands.
unmuted. Why don't you answer?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't.
I saw Ron wave his hand. He's like, I think I know, but I don't. So it's kind of like hit or miss.
Okay, so I don't see any raised hands. Do you anyway?
No.
Okay.
So we can answer the question.
Cap rate is what's called capitalization rate. And generally, what that means is if I buy a building, there's another question there. I thought it was somebody that had raised their answer. I was going to say, go ahead. Let me know what you think. But okay, so what cap rate means is if I buy a building, or I buy even a residential rental property, or an apartment complex, or any of those things, what the cap rate is, it's my net revenue after I've paid everything out of that money. Now, when I say everything, that does not include debt service. Okay. So if I buy a building for, let's say, let's use a number, let's say $10 million. If I buy a building for $10 million and the cap rate is 10%, which is, by the way, is that likely?
No.
Okay. Just wanted to throw that out there.
No.
Now, if the cap rate is 10%, that means on my my $10 million that I bought this building for, I will make $1 million a year net after I've paid for everything. That's after I've paid for the taxes, I've paid for the maintenance, I've paid for everything.
Yep.
Now, the reason why this is important for investors is they will then use that number to decide how much of a debt service they want on that property. You know, whether if they go out and get a loan for, you know, $6 million, whether that loan will be covered by that amount they're making per year. So it is a very important number to know, and we can actually, you know, there's a way to calculate it. And then sometimes you will see, hey, this building is for sale at a 4.5% cap rate or a 5% cap rate, but there is no price.
Yep.
Right. And you'd be like, well, how much is it?
Yep.
What you will find is they have given you the income on that property, and you would need to turn around and calculate what the price is. Okay, so in commercial, you will see undisclosed pricing regularly, and the reason why is there will be a cap rate and there will be income for that property, and then it's up to you as the agent / broker to be able to calculate what that property should sell for.
Yep.
You know, it's
a reverse
math,
way.
it's algebra,
Yeah,
it's whatever.
a reverse way of doing it,
but we can help you with those.
We can help you there. Yeah. So I'm gonna.
So typically, what is usually like the cap rate that you guys see? You mentioned 4%, and you said 10% is kind of not something that you see a lot.
Yeah.
So it's going to depend on the category of the real estate, right? If you're buying an A grade, well, now A grade means it's investment quality, which means it will be bought by the big firms on Wall Street, right? A grade property will generally be somewhere in the 2 to 4% cap rate.
Yep. But those are like
premium,
the higher end,
high end apartment complexes.
Don't need a lot of work.
Beautiful office buildings, yep, right in the middle of, you know, your bustling area. A high-end retail center.
Something in the Galleria.
Yeah, something in the Galleria would be something like that. Yeah. All of those would be considered what's called A grade investment real estate. Those will have a much lower cap rate, be like the 2 to 4 range.
Yep.
Right.
Still makes money, but yeah, it's a higher volume. So, yeah. Dora, I think the rule of thumb is we always get investors asking, you know, where's their, you know, sweet spot. Anything over 5% for them is considered good.
Yeah.
You get to 10
for the average
amazing.
Investor. If you're at 10%, so the rule of thumb is this: the lower the rate, the less risky the investment.
Well said.
Okay. Yeah. The higher the rate, the riskier the investment is.
The more they'll make, but it's more risky.
Yeah.
So, Dora, you also wanted to ask, what are ways to attract more commercial clients? I think the type of prospecting that you would do for that is kind of similar to residential, but you just have to target commercial.
You have to, yeah. And in order to do that, you're going to need access to CoStar.
Yeah.
Or even Crexi Platinum.
Yep.
Those are the types of products you need to be able to go and access those properties. Who owns the property? And generally it'll be an LLC. But with those 2 products that we're just talking about, they'll give you the president and about 2 or 3 offices in that company, yep, that you could reach out to and say, hey, I have a potential buyer for your property. Would you be interested in selling? You know, that kind of stuff.
Yep. The other thing I would, advise some of you, since most of you are on HAR or your local MLS, you want to look at Remind in HAR. It's not as good as, CoStar and Craxi, but it'll give you an idea. Remind does have a commercial option where you can look at ownership and forwarding address and that kind of thing.
Correct.
What is
And
it called, Mickey?
Sorry?
What is it called?
Remind, REMINE, Remind, and it's through HAR. So it's a free thing for all HAR members. And if you're in another MLS, they'll probably have something close, similar to Remind.
Okay. And very, 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 very important. Did you hear all those varies? Don't ever turn down your client regarding commercial real estate. Okay. If they turn around and tell you, oh, hey, do you do commercial? Do not say no. Say yes.
I have a partner who does.
Absolutely. We have partners that are experts in commercial real estate, and I'd love to help you.
Yep.
I would love to help you, not me, but you, right? You're going to turn around and say to them, we'd love to help you because we would help you help them so that you don't lose access to that client.
Yep. Well, so another question we want to acknowledge, Troy's asking if you run into some commercial deals, would we consider partnering up?
Always.
All day, Troy. Anything. Once again, I'll reiterate, it's not about the money. It's really not. It's just about getting a deal done and making your client happy. And whatever involvement you would want for Arthur and I, we can do that. I'll use Dora as an example. Her and I did a listing for 1 full year. It was on the 12th hour of the 12th month of the 30th day. Like, it took that long for this deal to get done, but her and I stuck through it, and she got mentorship from me. And so it really does, everything is kind of case by case basis. But if you have deals or you hear people talk about commercial, don't say no. Tell them, yes, I have a partner. Let me get my partner in, and we'll be your partners all day. So that is not a problem. Ashley asked if Sabor has a platform for Remind. I think they do.
Didn't Sabor just join with HAL?
I thought it was announced, but I don't know if it's official yet.
Okay.
So
they might do.
They might. Ashley, you can try maybe messaging them, and
they'll answer you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Ask them if they have something similar to.
I think they do. I just don't think it's called Remind.
Yeah.
Any other questions we can answer, guys? We're coming up to an hour, so
I
go ahead.
have one more question.
Sure.
Well, 2 more questions. One of them is if there are any commercial lease contract classes. I'm sure there's probably someone HCR or with Legacy, because I definitely want to be a little bit more knowledge on the contract. And then my next question is, just like in residential real estate, whenever I started, you kind of have to start somewhere. So you started off doing leases, I started doing residential leases. And I feel like my question is it kind of the same thing with like commercial, like you hop in, you are getting some leases, commercial leases, and you kind of learn your way up into like sales. Is that kind of, okay, it's like 2 different things, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The commercial leases, they are a lot more complicated than a sale. Because in commercial leases, I mean, you've done them, I've done them as well. Yep. Sometimes a commercial lease is a 25-year deal. Okay. It's not just here we go, you've leased the property, you're done. Some of them are simple. Hey, it's a 2-year lease, boom, done, no problem. Right. But some of them are extremely complicated. And to the point where you get the basics done with an LOI saying, hey, this is what we require.
Intent. Yep.
This is our intent. This is what we want. This is what we need to do. And then everything is then passed on to an attorney, because you have the buyer may have a very, very complicated situation, very complicated demands that you and I, or neither of us, none of us can put into the contract, because it would be considered practicing law. So we would step aside, and then their attorney would then come into play. Okay. I had a deal right here in Sugarland behind the Hyatt down here. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
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 So I had a deal there. I had the building up for lease, and the tenant wanted to set up a pharmacy, a particular type of pharmacy, and they were going to be making drugs on the facility, right? But a lot of the stuff that they were asking me, I was not able to put in a lease. I was not allowed to put that kind of lingo into a lease. So what we had to do is I had to contact the owner of the building and say, hey, in this situation here, this is what they're asking for. Here is everything they're asking for, but I can't put this in a lease. We need to get this done by an attorney. And before you agree to any of this, you have to have your attorney review. And it took about 12 months just to get everything hashed out and agreed upon. And once it did, it ended up having a complication with the city of Sugarland that would not allow them to do what they wanted to do, and the lease ended up falling through. So all of that time that we spent on it still resulted in nothing.
Yeah.
You know,
And that can happen.
that can
That
happen.
can happen. Be ready for that. I think-
But we were lucky enough that we got it leased like
Good.
right away, right after, by somebody that was a lot simpler. So to answer your question, sometimes the leases are far more complicated than a purchase deal. So the purchase deals tend to be easy. Hey, I want to offer this and I want to do that. The easiest commercial deals you can do are land sales.
Well, that's easy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Commercial land.
Yep. And there's an abundance out there in Texas.
And there's an abundance of listing that you can pick up.
Yep.
So if
Okay.
that's something that you want to do, we can mentor you, we can coach you on how to do that as well.
Yep. And going
And
back
help
to
you with it.
I agree, Arthur. And going back to what Arthur was saying, sorry to interrupt you, Arthur. The lease contract that I wrote, or not, I didn't write it, but that I had to go through with my client for that big warehouse. I think it was 150 pages. It was that thick, and I had to involve 2 attorneys
Oh,
to
yeah.
review it. And the client had to sign on like 75 pages of that. Like, it's crazy. So it can get very, very intricate. But Arthur's right. Anytime you have questions, call an attorney. And we have a couple of real estate attorneys that we know. We'll get you their names, but get them involved. It's worth every penny to pay those guys because they know what to look for in these big deals.
Somebody asked about Canada. What was it?
The
I have
Canada
a
question
question.
was, do you do mentorship up there? So we'll look into that. I'm not sure.
So commercial real estate is worldwide is going to be the same. So I don't think we can help and do the deals in Canada,
No.
but we can
just
help
kinda
them, we can guide them.
Guide them, yeah.
Yeah.
So there is, we'd have to talk to the Canada what do you call it? Broker
Yeah,
up there,
yes.
and we can figure something out. So I'll try to get an answer for you, and see if we can, get some more clarity on it.
Yeah, I have a question because you talk about the lead or the commercial deal.
Mhm.
I heard that in most of the commercial deal is off market and based on the relationship between commercial agent and their owner.
Mhm.
Because the owner of the building or the owner of the property is one of the golden for you to keep in secret. So that's
Sure.
why they say the off market, it means when sometimes it even like most of you see the residential we post on XJR and then everything like that. But with commercial deal, it's a little bit different because it most of the time they say it's off market and based on the relationship between commercial agent to commercial agent. For example, if you know somebody want that specific property and you know the other one want to sell, so you connect them and you get a deal. So I
That
heard
is, yes, this is also true. Now here's the thing. A lot of this, when they say is off market, what they actually mean as well is nobody sees it because it's not advertised to the public as well. Okay, so like if you have access to CoStar, which is what we were talking about, there's a huge number of properties on there that is found nowhere else except on there. Okay, and it's, and sometimes what you'll find is it's listed by a broker that says there will not be a commission paid to
the
buyer's rep.
Yep.
Okay,
That
so
happens
there, that happens too. Now you may, if you do have a buyer, you may turn around and be able to negotiate with them to throw you 1%. But 1% on some of these deals is like $50-60 million deal. You're going to get paid 1%.
You're good.
Yeah,
You're good.
you know, it's not so bad. But based on what you're saying here, yes, those are considered off market because you don't get to see them. You know, the only way you can access those is through the commercial platform that they have. They're not even listed on LoopNet.
Correct. And but that's why, you know, that will come with time. You'll find ways to get through to some of those sellers, and the biggest thing will be profiling some buyers as well. So there's plenty of different opportunities. You know, you could do leases, you can jump on a team maybe and even go that route where you can get some leads out of it. So there's different avenues that you should explore if you want to get into this you know, eventually full time.
Yeah, there are agents that have literally gone out and created a relationship with 2 or 3 clients. This is in commercial. They've created those relationships between 2 or 3 clients, and they've set up leases with those clients. And in all honesty, they don't have to work again just from those 2 clients, because those clients are buying properties, selling properties, doing leases that, you know, there's enough commission to cover 6-7 years worth of income just from doing one lease. You know, imagine leasing a building like, you know, that's 300,000-400,000 square feet at $40 a square foot for 25 years. You know, and it renews with options every 5 years. The commission you'd be getting on that would probably be around 2 to 4%, but 2% on that is probably $3 to $4 million every 5 years.
Yeah,
that's a check that goes to you every 5 years.
Yep.
You know, that's equivalent to almost $1 million a year from just one client. You know, so I had one of my when I first got started in real estate, there was a lady that used to be at Champions. Name was Sue Johnson. She mentored me through a couple of deals that I did, and one of her clients was Chase Bank. And every time Chase Bank would would open a new bank, she would represent them on the lease and putting their lease together, right? And this lady would make literally $600,000-700,000 from just one lease. You know, just getting the lease set up, and she would do probably 2 or 3 of those every year.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
So she actually stopped practicing real estate and she went into teaching. That's, I mean, what else do you do at that point?
Exactly. Good question by Christina. Can agents double end on a lease deal?
Yes
and no.
but remember how we were saying that it is risky, and generally commercial agents try to screw the other side as much as possible. If you feel okay with screwing the other side as much as possible, then by all means. But if you don't,
yeah,
and you don't want to be involved in lawsuits or anything like that in the future, my advice would always be to get somebody to represent them on the other side, especially if they start asking you questions. Okay, because the minute they start asking questions that you now have to answer, you're not doing your fiduciary duty to your client.
Who you representing at that
Who are
point.
you representing?
So,
So it is better for you to represent your seller and keep doing what you're doing and give the other side to someone else. And you could give the other side and just say, hey,
give me a referral back or something.
Or better yet, you could say, hey, you get 1% of this deal by representing the owner.
Yep.
And I'm going to keep 5% or 6%, whatever it is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Take that responsibility out of your hands. Don't put both sides on one. It's just not good practice. But there's ways for you to at least make the commission on it.
Yes.
Just don't put all the responsibilities on one side.
Correct. And if you go and look at those lawsuits we were talking about, most of them arise from these situations.
Yeah. Somebody feels like they got screwed because the
Because
person in the middle,
the person, the agent that they thought was, and they will always plead ignorance and said, oh, I thought he represented me, but he represented the owner. So guess who's going to get thrown into the fire? You are.
You as the agent. Yeah. So stay out of this. We don't condone that stuff. But good question.
That is a very good question.
Let's anybody else have a real quick question or comment? If not, we'll wrap it up today. Really good session today, and it's recorded, so you guys will have our contact info. If you have more questions, call us on a one-on-one basis. We'll go through anything that you want to go through and help you guys get a commercial deal done. I'm proud of agents like Ron and Dora. Dora did that deal with me, and now she's doing things on her own. So that's what I want, for you guys to move forward and start getting into this business. So thank you again for the platform. Appreciate it. And you guys have a great week. And if you need anything, please, reach out to us.
Thank you
Contact
so
info.
much to the both of you. What's the best way for them to contact you if they do have any further questions or want to partner up with you in the future?
Text is my go-to, but email as well, Sydney. And I'm a serial texter, so if they text me, I'll text back. So that's a great way to get in touch, and then email as well. And you can contact one of us, and the other person will be involved. So if you contact me, Arthur will know about it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Great chat today, guys. Thank you. Everyone, take it easy. Bye, Sydney. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.